the Ummah needs to have a single Imam in charge of it. One of the greatest reasons of the division of the Ummah is that we have no Imam. We are like a flock of sheep without a shepherd. And so therefore, when some commotion occurs, or we see a wolf coming out of the forest, we all flee in different directions. And then the wolf can take as prey the weakest amongst us. But when there is a shepherd to protect his flock, when there is a shepherd to make sure that no sheep stray from the flock, the Ummah stays together. And the Imam is a shepherd upon us, as the Prophet ﷺ has said. The Prophet ﷺ said, each of you is in charge, and each of you is responsible for his charge. But the word the Prophet ﷺ used in the Arabic language is ra'i. In other words, a shepherd, if you were to translate it literally. So in other words, the Prophet ﷺ said, if we were to literally translate that hadith, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, the Imam is a shepherd, and he is responsible for his flock. So the first shepherd of this Ummah is the Imam of the Muslims. When these issues occur to the Ummah on a large scale, the Muslims cannot react effectively to it. And the Muslims therefore are divided in opinion amongst themselves. And each of these rulers seeks only to strengthen his own position, whether in his country or amongst his region. And so therefore it's not uncommon to find these days Muslims putting the sword to each other, even though their enemies have targeted them all for extermination. And so therefore, among the essential matters that is required in order for the unity of the Ummah to take place is that we must have an Imam. And the earliest Muslims understood this very clearly. And this is why they delayed in burying the Prophet ﷺ for 3 days until the issue of who was to be the Khalifa was resolved. They delayed in the burial of the Prophet ﷺ until they decided who was going to rule this Ummah. Did that show you how important this matter is? And likewise, when the companions differed as to who would rule this Ummah, the Ansar saying a Khalifa would be from us, and others saying we will have 2 rulers, one from the Muhajirin and one from the Ansar. The companions from the Muhajirin said no, because the Arabs would not follow anybody except from a person from Quraysh. And they gave the Khilafah to Abu Bakr. So the existence of an Imam who rules by Allah's book and who revives the concept of shura, consultation between himself and between those people of knowledge and experience in the Ummah, is an essential ingredient for unifying the Ummah. And that is because when Muslims differ, they need to have somebody to resolve their differences for them. If, even in any small matter, you might have a difference of opinion. Those brothers who drove to this conference, you might differ amongst yourselves. Should we stop now, or should we stop after an hour? Should we take this road, or should we take that road? Who is going to resolve this difference if you cannot come to a consensus amongst yourselves? The emir of the journey. After hearing the arguments or hearing the discussions of the brothers, if they cannot all unify on one opinion, he would say the final word. And the Muslims then on that trip would agree to it. If the Prophet ﷺ commanded that if 3 people set out on a journey, they must have an Imam, how can 1 billion people live without an Imam?